I'll say that right now, right? I believe Wizards should try to make the Arena Shuffler kind of close to reality. If you play this subset, if you accept the theoretical statistical possibility that, yeah, man, it's possible to draw 17 cards, 17 cards with no lands. If you accept that as a theoretical acceptable possibility in your shuffles, then you are also accepting the fact that you can draw nothing, literally an unplayable hand, every second of your life to an effective infinite number of lifetimes. That's what you're saying.
Are you ready to be destroyed by facts and logic?
If you want your statistics and your probabilities to be 100% true, and you want to say, oh yeah, well there's a such and such percent chance, like, oh yeah, you know, like there's a 0.006% chance. Well, in that case, there's also a non-zero chance that you shuffle the deck in a way such that all your land cards end up just on the top or the bottom compared to where they were. Right? If you want to say, oh, we have to consider all shuffle possibilities, you also consider the shuffle possibility where you just turn the deck over and call that a shuffle. We all know that that does not count as a shuffle. But if you want to say that you have to consider all of these possibilities, you have to also agree that flipping the deck over counts as a legal shuffle. And you cannot do that, which is why you cannot use all of the same probability calculations that you can for something like pulling balls out of a bag. All right, welcome back. Hopefully we'll be able to capture this illustration to demonstrate the difference between determining probabilities for something like drawing cards from a deck which has been shuffled, its order has been established, and it does not change, versus all of the typical methods for calculating probabilities in which you have something like balls that you are taking from a bag. And for that, we have 3D printed test Buddhas for calibrating that lovely used new to me machine. And the jigsaw bag, which is the most interesting thing I've got. Sorry, it's a little bit dirty. It's dirtying my desk. So these effectively are balls. This is effectively a bag. You put the balls in the bag and you mix them up, right? This is the assumption that you make for saying, oh, within n number of events, you're looking for these to happen or these not to happen. And then when this happens, then X, Y, and Z happens. So we can all start off agreeing that we have the basic assumption that once a thing is drawn, it's removed from the set, right? So, bam, number 5. Number 5 is out, okay? Number 5, gold, because there's white ones and there's, you know, shiny ones. So, we'll say this is a non-land card, right? So you've drawn the non-land card from the deck, and it's out, all right? So, theoretically, your chance of drawing a land or not, right? Yeah, your chance of drawing a land has increased theoretically. In this scenario, yes, that is true. When you're trying to determine the probabilities of drawing a card in a deck, though, that's not necessarily the case. And hopefully I can provide a visualization and an easy way to show that Wizards probably is enforcing losses, but that's a secondary point. So this guy's been removed from the deck, right? So mix them up. We draw a new, bam, look at that, perfect. So our chances were slightly higher to draw a land because we took this out of the deck. So mix them all up, right? You're trying to determine your probabilities of, wow, look at that, we just drew a land and it was the exact same one. Wow, what are the probabilities of that happening? Well, there's 8 of them in there, so it's a 1 in 8 chance, right? So that mix-up is equivalent to a shuffle. That shuffling is not happening every time you pull a card from a deck. Because that shuffling is not happening every time you pull a card from a deck. You cannot make the same assumptions about probabilistic outcomes that you would if you were drawing balls from a bag. And because the way humans shuffle is easy enough to mimic, you know, I kind of put something together that's coming up with decent results. And I'm not trying to make a shuffler that does not ever produce results where there aren't things like 15, 16, 17, 18. Getting 18 lands is extremely weird. Getting 15 in a row, or non-lands rather. Getting 15 non-lands in a row, yeah, it happens, okay? I'm not saying that these things don't happen. They absolutely happen in a completely normalistic distribution, right? An actual statistical, balanced out, properly numericized way, okay? That's all mathematics. We're not trying to use pure mathematics in a game that is supposed to resemble an actual paper game that exists. Okay? At least that's my personal philosophy. So I'll say that right now, right? I believe Wizards should try to make the Arena Shuffler kind of close to reality. I don't know if that's what they do with MTG Online. I haven't played MTG Online in a decade. And I'm not going back. So it would be great if Wizards could make the Arena Shuffler a little less robotic feeling, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And hopefully I'll pull up the little graphic thing, which is not an advanced program. I'm a very amateur programmer, and I've, got this thing set up to where you can very easily find the one shuffle, not the one, but like the 5 shuffles out of 10,000 where you have situations where you have 17 or 18 cards with no lands. Those are a bright red line, and then it's as easy as saying, all right, don't pick that one. Don't give them that one. We've identified, and if you guys want to talk about the random number generation and seed picking and all that stuff, they know the end result of these seeds, and they can, it's not difficult. It's not difficult to parse the deck and say, oh, is there a subset where 17 or more, lands or non-lands exist in a row. That's very doable, very capable. And I've been thinking about it, like, they really want to break it down. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a high level programmer or anything, but all the videos online I've watched talk about hash tables being the quickest way to transform and execute things like this. And at the end of the day, all a shuffle is just like a hash table transformation. All they need to do is calculate, 5 to 10 steps. Boom, 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 boom. Like you start here, you generate your random number seed, then you put the cards in that order, and then now that they're in that weird seeded order, then you execute your first hash function, and then they get shuffled. And the arrangement of that hash table, right, has been predetermined. It's all been predetermined. It's all been pre-shuffled. You can have a million shuffles, right? 10 million shuffles, 100 million shuffles, whatever. You can have such a high level number of shuffles that no one person is ever going to experience them all. And everyone that experiences them can still have a fair and enjoyable game, right? So you calculate all these shuffles beforehand. And then because you can just link hash tables to each other and like I said, I'm not a high level programmer, but it's very easy to set up a series of tables that will be able to draw a path and arrive at any one of those millions of shuffles, right? And you'll know that they're good guaranteed shuffles, that there's no sections in there where somebody's going to be drawing 17 cards with no lands, and you're not going to give them an opening hand that looks good while the deck is not representative of something, which could ever happen in real life, So many arena shuffles could not happen in real life. When I look at this stuff, I don't even see the matrix anymore. I just see win, win, loss, win. And then there's 27 losses in a row. But anyway, so this is a little visualization identifying sections where there were stretches of cards 18 units long with no lands in between them. And yeah, there were a few. As you see, we scrolled past 2,000. I honestly don't think I've played 2,000 games of Magic the Gathering Arena. And one of the points that I've made in the video is that you can effectively have all of these shuffles predetermined and measured out, and you know, it's a hash table transformation. It takes less than a fraction of a second to do. Let's see, there's one. So you can save 1,000,000 shuffles, right? If somebody's played 1,000,000 games of Arena in their life, please let me know. And so you can get rid of this, right? You can get rid of these bad shuffles. And if we change this down, right, take it down to 15, then yeah, of course there are a few more lines that show up, but you can determine, you know, like how much fun do you want your players to have? So there's a few more, right? And it's slightly more common, of course. But you can see that there's still plenty. And again, I don't think I've played 2,000 games of Arena in all the time that I've been playing it. So Wizards could very easily say that we're going to use, you know, 9,980 of these shuffles. And you should be good for a long time, right? It's not picking your spells for you and stuff like that. It's just giving you a distribution. And that's ultimately what we're talking about with probabilities and things like that, is the distribution. The way Wizards has it set up right now is they cut off the most extreme ends, right? So they cut off these. Oh, okay. So the way Wizards has done it is they've cut the tails off of here. So you're not going to get all your lands on the bottom of your deck. You're not going to get all your lands on the top of your deck. But you might get a big chunk of something right in the middle. And again, if you want to say, sure, it's a possibility, you also have to accept the possibility that these shuffles exist. You can't just clip these shuffles off and say, okay, we're gonna not let this happen, but we are also going to let them have really unwinnable games. Straight up unwinnable game. We will give you an unwinnable game sometimes. Period. The end. And again, realistically, if a human shuffles a deck, you're not going to end up with chunks like this. You're not going to get results that leave you with massive gaps like that. Unless you're a really bad shuffler, you know. If you're that bad at shuffling, please have someone else shuffle your deck for you. It is not a bad thing to ask for help so that everyone has a good game. Or learn a different shuffle technique. Shuffle on the table. I don't know, man. There's a better way to do it. I would like to see the better way implemented. That's what this comes down to at the end of the day. Trying to illustrate the numbers that are available, the possibilities, and why I believe that Wizards is enforcing certain losses. So, in order to determine how many possible shuffle combinations, right, you do 60 factorial, you get a massive number. Get this number, right? 8.32 divided, followed by 81 zeros. Huge number, right? And so, in order to ask the question, how many shuffles would realistically be accepted at an event? How many shuffles would realistically represent something that could be achieved by human hands? You know, things like that. What shuffles do not represent reality? You know, a shuffle where magically all the lands are on the top, all the lands are on the bottom. A shuffle where magically all the lands are exactly in the middle. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like, sure, in the theory of the outcomes, it's a possibility. Will that happen? No, absolutely not. If you do that, they will kick you out for cheating. So let's be real. Okay, how do we represent the number of shuffles which could be considered legal or reasonable? Thank you so much to the people leaving comments about the experiences that they've had both on Shuffler and in person. Somebody commented that they had an extremely low land count deck and were in a mirror matchup against somebody else. They both went 12 draws and they were running extremely low. I think he said 18 lands, 17 lands, some insanely low land count. And they only went 12 draws in between. So getting 17 non-land draws in a deck with 22, it's statistically impossible in reality. And let me illustrate why right now. So we saw this big number. What is this big number? This is the big number. How can we represent, a shuffle which has things stuck in groups? We can take this number and we can reduce it. So what does 59 factorial represent? 59 factorial is where two cards basically get stuck together and act like one. And so because these two cards are stuck together acting like one, you effectively have one less card in the deck, right? And you can put that number in Google and do whatever you want to do. Funny thing, if you put this number into Google and subtract this number from this number, there's still 81 zeros left over. All right. So there are more than enough shuffles. But let's take it all the way down. Let's end up in the scenario where you have 17 cards stuck together. Right? How many will this leave you with? 17 from 60 leaves you 43, right? Now, because this acts as one card, you have to add 1 to 43. You'll end up with 44. Now, if you take 44 and you factorial it, this is the number that you get. Way, way fewer zeros. What happens when you subtract this number from that number? You're subtracting the number. This number represents all shuffles, by the way. This is not just lands. This represents all possible shuffles in which 17 cards of a type are stuck together acting like one, which is effectively what happened to me in that arena match where I drew 17 cards in between lands. It was like I had one big non-land card that I was stuck on. So I effectively had a deck of 44 cards. So this number minus the total number of decks leaves us with basically the same number. In here, these numbers are the same, right? You have to go 30 digits down the line to even have numbers change. And that's eliminating all possible combinations, all possible deck combinations where there are 17 stuck together. And just to make the point even more clear. Okay, good. Yes. So, still has 81 zeros. Okay. Yeah. You're one. I don't even know what this number is. You know what I mean? I know quintillions and nonillions and decillions and duodecillions, all up to that. I don't know off the top. This is close to a Google. It's close to a Google. It's almost got 100 zeros behind it. You are approaching a Google of shuffle combinations left over if you take out all of the bad ones. So we should do that. All right. So one of the final numbers I want to arrive at is obviously one of the most important numbers that we could ever deal with, and that's the heat-death of the universe. So at the end of all things, and effectively the end of time, because particles won't be moving around to really give the illusion of time passing anymore. If you, and there's 106 zeros until the heat death of the universe. So if you take the subset of decks, right, and you play them, I guess if you play them once a year, there's enough to get you halfway to the heat death of the universe. I feel like there's a song about this. 3.154 E. All right, cool. So we got 8.4 E to the 46. So if you played a game of Magic every second, right? Every single second, it would take you 8.4 E to the 46 years. That's 8 followed by 46 zeros years. And again, that's approaching halfway to the heat death of the universe. If you play this subset of games, one game every second, complete game every second, if you play this subset, if you accept the theoretical statistical possibility that, yeah, man, it's possible to draw 17 cards, 17 cards with no lands. If you accept that as a theoretical acceptable possibility in your shuffles, then you are also accepting the fact that you can draw nothing, literally an unplayable hand, every second of your life to an effective infinite number of lifetimes. That's what you're saying.